Ahoy Priority Riders! Welcome aboard to today's video where we're going to install an all alloy basket on the Priority E-Coast. So for this video we'll need a few tools. A set of Allen keys, specifically the 5 and the 4mm Allen key, the 10 and 8mm box wrench, a box cutter, and a pair of diagonal cutters. So let's go through all of our parts. We'll of course have our basket, our 2 struts that will connect the basket to both the fork blades, this bracket here which will connect the basket to the center of the fork, 4 M5 bolts that are slightly longer. They're about it's a M5 by 20. You have these 2 here which are a little bit shorter. They're M5 by 15. You'll have 10 washers, 4 M5 nuts, 1 M6 nut, 3 zip ties, a M5 by 12 bolt, an M5 nut, and an M5 washer, and this bracket here. And this bracket here, which will attach the light to the struts. Let's attach our main bracket that will connect the basket to the fork. We're going to need this bracket here, 2 of the M5 by 20 bolts, 4 washers, and 2 M5 nuts. Grab the bolt, put 1 washer by the head of the bolt, and feed it from the bottom up. Then place the bracket on top, then 1 more washer, followed by the M5 nut. You'll do the same for the next hole. No need to tighten these down, as we'll do that once it's on the bike. Now let's attach our struts. Again, we're going to use the 2 longer bolts, which are the M5 by 20, 4 washers, and 2 M5 nuts. Grab the bolt, put a washer by the head of the bolt. Grab your strut. We're going to put it through the strut first, through the circular end, not the oblong end. Then feed it through this hole in the basket. Finish off with another washer and the nut. Repeat the same on the opposite side. Again, you do not want to tighten these down. You'll want to leave it loose until we put it on the bike. Okay. Let's get our bike ready so we can install our rack. We're going to want to remove the hardware and the front light over here. If you installed the fender in the front, we're going to want to move it to the back. That can be easily done by grabbing your 15mm wrench and loosening the wheel nuts. And then just let the wheel sit inside of the fork like so. Now let's grab our 5mm Allen key and our 10mm wrench, and we're going to remove this bolt here. Do be careful when removing this so that none of the hardware falls on the ground. Okay, we can let the light just hang over here off to the side. Now we can just tip the fender downward like so and bring it to the back. Let's put the wheel back into the dropout. If you have any issues installing the front wheel, I would recommend to refer to the assembly video. So the hardware that we'll need is the M6 by 60mm long bolt that was already installed on the fork, the 2 concaved spacers, 2 M6 washers that are the same outer diameter, and this M6 nut. First, grab one of the washers, feed it through the bolt. Then we're going to grab our basket. We're going to feed it through the adapter here. Then we're going to grab one of our concaved spacers. You want the flat side up against the adapter here and the concave side up against the fork. You're going to want one strut on both sides of the wheel, and then you're just going to slide this through the center of the fork. Now let's grab our other concave spacer. We're going to put the concave side up against the fork and the flat side up against the fender mount here. Now put the fender mount on there, followed by a washer and the M6 nut. Again, we're just going to leave that nice and loose until everything else is connected, and then we'll tighten it all down. Now let's attach the struts. We'll want to remove the provided bolt here, and we'll use the one that came with the basket in the hardware bag. It's just a little bit longer. So let's use that longer bolt with the washer, feed it through the strut here, and then thread it into the fork. Make sure not to cross thread the bolt when threading it in. If you feel too much resistance, you'll want to stop and inspect both the bolt and the hole in the fork to make sure there's no issues with it. At this point, we can tighten that one down nice and snug, and we'll want to repeat the same thing on the opposite side. To attach the light to the front end of the basket, we'll want to give this cable some slack. We'll do this by uncoiling this section here until we get to this point. Now we can pull some excess cable, and then we can bring it to the front. So let's attach our light to our L-shape adapter. We'll need the M5 by 12 millimeter bolt, this M6 inner diameter washer. This originally came with the bike and was in front of the light like this. We'll also need a small M5 washer and the M5 nut. Let's get the M5 bolt and the bigger washer. Feed the bolt through and then put it in front of the light adapter like this. We're going to grab our L-shaped bracket like this, followed by our washer and the nut. Let's get this snug up by using our 4 millimeter Allen key and our 8 millimeter wrench. Okay, we don't want this too tight, just tight enough so it's not wobbling around. So we want to connect the L-shaped bracket to the inside of the basket here. Let's feed the light on the inside of the strut, and then we can just let it hang there for now. We're going to unthread the nut here. This is why we left everything loose. And make sure not to drop that washer. Then, while holding these two together, we're going to grab that bracket then our washer and our M5 nut. This part could be a little tricky as it's a tight spot, so if you have someone to help you out, that's great. But you just want to get that nut threaded onto the bolt loosely, and then we can go back with our tool to tighten it down. So I'm just going to put the wrench at the top over here, hold that nut in place, and then I'm going to get this snug. From here, I can tilt the light to my liking. Now let's zip tie the light wire onto the basket so it's not dangling. Put one here. Okay. I'll put the other one over here. Then I'll just cut off the excess. Now let's go back around and tighten every bolt that we touched today. Let's start with the fork mount here. Then we'll do the basket bolts here. Down at the fork. Then the strut to the basket. And then we'll do the same on the opposite side. We'll start at the fork. Last, we'll want to tighten down the bolt that's holding the strut and the light adapter together. First, make sure that you have the light tilted in the right way, that it's not pointing too high or too low. To do that, you can just grab the light and pivot it down. You can also adjust it from over here at the bolt where the light attaches to this little adapter. We'll also want to make sure that this bolt here that connects the adapter to the L bracket is nice and tight. Now let's make sure we have enough cable slack. An example of the cable being too tight is if you turn the handlebar to the right, you'll notice that it'll prevent the handlebars from fully turning. The cable will start to bind. So if I loosen this up a little bit, give it some more slack, let the handlebars freely spin until it stops, like so. And then I'll just, if I have some excess, I'll push that back in. But I want a little bit of slack. So this is pretty good here. From here, I'm going to use the coil wrap, and I'm going to completely wrap it around all 3 cables that we have here. So this cable slack is pretty good. If you ever need more, simply uncoil the wrap here and pull a little bit of excess out. Now that we have our basket and our light installed on the bike and everything's nice and tight, let's turn the bike on to make sure that the light is working properly. Well, I hope this video was some smooth sailing for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us.